Hello and welcome to U Diplomatic Enclave. I'm Yasser Aziz and today I'm going to discuss briefly about the Korean Peninsula and the recent developments the world had just observed this past Friday. It was just one small step, one small gesture, but the significance of the move made by the leadership of North Korea, Mr. Kim Jong-un, it's a historic moment that will be remembered for many years to come. Just past Friday, the leadership of both the North and the South Korea met across the demilitarized zone, where the leader of the North Korea was warmly welcomed by his counterpart and he was embraced by the South Korean leader Mr. Moon. And the meeting was very historic, which brought an end to the years of conflict of the Korean War. And it was the first time since 1953 that Mr. Kim Jong-un became the first leader, to be precisely, to visit the South Korea after 1953. Talking briefly about the Korean War, after the end of the World War II, the Korea was divided. The Korea overall was it was freed from the Japanese army. The North Korea was occupied by the forces of the Soviet Union, and the South Korea was occupied by the forces of the United States. And later on, by the end of 1948, both the forces withdrew, which brought to the start of the new war. The Korean War it started on June 25th, 1950, and it lasted up until July 27, 1953, which brought an end to the end of the Korean War. It unfortunately the war itself caused a lot of casualties, including the United Nations troops. So as we just observed, as we just discussed, that Mr. Kim Jong-un just became the first leader since the end of war in 1953 to visit the South Korea, and also both the leadership agreed to end the long-lasting issue of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. It itself is very important for not only for the Koreans but for the entire region. For many years, for past 25 years, or in fact for many decades, the leadership of the United States and also many other world leaders have done their best to convince the Korean leadership and to bring these both countries together, but nothing was working so far. And we are glad that finally, after years or years of isolation, the leadership of North Korea finally agreed to come to the table to renegotiate and to bring a peace to the region and towards their own country. Some in the America, I was just observing some news channels from the West and also from the Middle East and also from the Asia Pacific, and I have observed that the world is watching this whole developing trends with a huge optimism, because finally the leadership in North Korea, they have decided or they have realized that isolation is not a solution. In modern era, the countries are interdependent. They have to rely on each other, just not only for their economic needs but also for the social needs and also for the strategic needs. So the joint declaration, which was decided, which was signed by the both leadership, the main points I have here, it was the most important is denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which is unfortunately the joint declaration itself does not clearly state, or it does not have any specific comments on the missile strategy or how they are going to end this how they are going to work with that. The policy itself is not clear, but denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is a huge step, is a huge announcement made by the both leadership. It was also the declaration itself is a 3-page long declaration on this. This was just signed this past Friday. It also ensures an era of peace, and it also ensures end of military conflict between both countries. The DMZ, the demilitarized zone, to become a peace zone, and also both the leaders are going to have a talk line. So the follow-up summit of this leadership meetings between North and South is a Trump meeting with the leadership of North Korea, Mr. Kim Jong-un, and Trump's meeting, which is also observed and being discussed recently right now. The meeting is expected in May. Still, the dates are undecided. But if I briefly talk about the meetings and its significance, we have also observed that the U.S. leadership has been trying for their best to approach the Korean leadership. We also observed some developments when the leadership of North Korea, the father actually of Mr. Kim Jong Un, Mr. Kim Jong Il, sorry, he wanted to meet Mr. Clinton. So Mr. Clinton administration sent Madeleine Albright. No progress was made. Then there was Bush administration, which called the regime in North Korea as an axis of evil. Obama administration, they also they made their trademark developments in terms of opening the American diplomacy towards the Cuba, towards Iran, but unfortunately no significance was made on the North Korea. So now we have Trump administration. They are doing their best. The administration has worked very hard for past 25 years. The U.S. intelligence agencies and administration and the foreign and the State Department, they have done entirely great job to somehow bring the North Korean leadership onto the table, because obviously the issues, the conflicts, they themselves are very there are some things which is not very good in a way. Like the world cannot accept another nuclear war, what we have observed in post World War era or before that era. And also I would like to end up this this discussion with the famous quotation by Mr. Sun Tzu, a Chinese philosopher. He says, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." So we are expecting fruitful discussions between Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim Jong-un meeting. And also we also wish and hope and expect the other crisis in the world. Also, we want an end to them. For example, the Ukraine crisis, the crisis in the Middle East, and also the Iran peace deal that we are going to discuss in our next blog. We are going to discuss about Iran peace, nuclear peace deal in details. So, of course, world cannot afford another war. The countries are interdependent, and dialogue and diplomacy is the only way out to resolve ongoing conflict. Thank you so very much and have a nice day.